In a world of business complexity, execution is everything. This is JD and the Brain, where failure was not an option and performance isn't accidental. Let's get to work.
I have visions of Will Smith in iRobot.
Yes, there probably could be. And, there are some flaws. There's some weird things that happen, like, security, police sirens and things like that. When they're trying to get in, does it know that it can't do certain things? There's certain ways it can be tripped up, but it was great. And it was a lot cheaper, literally, than anything else. I do a lot of Ubering and it was a ton cheaper. I took an Uber down to the event and I took a, Waymo back, and the Waymo was like a third the price. It
Wow.
was, yeah, think about that. So let me get back to your question. I do think that this is really important because we are going to have AI teammates. I already do have them. I have AI teammates today. So in this agentic era, we're going to have AI teammates. They're going to do some of the work, right? And honestly, this is where I think Department of War needs to get to very fast. We need to think about this because they need to have the commander's intent embedded in it. What does that look like? You said, what does that look like? So we're going to delegate tasks, but we don't want it to go off the rails, right? So you have to give the algorithm your intent, and you have to have really strong, I would say ironclad data governance for that to make sense. Like, what data is going to build off of to make this decision on how it moves forward? It's not going to make a decision based on anything it can find on the internet. You're going to feed it the guardrails, and the trust layer has to be very strong in these. And we have that. I mean, we are really there. So we're going to embed zero trust security. We're going to have strict compliance with protocols, and we're going to have ethical boundaries that are built into the platform. Right? So that's in the architecture. So when it makes a decision, you can ask it twice and it will give you the same answer because it's based on an ethical guidelines that it's going to come up with the same answer twice. You can give it access. I mean, you could give it access to the internet and it might come up with a different answer. But the bottom line is the way we operate these AI tools is they can see things that we can't see. So we want to use them, right? For us to have speed, we can't see a 1% difference in a pile of noise. Right? We can't see the signal from the noise many times, but AI can. It can pick out those differences. We want to leverage it for what it's good at. It can get us all the way to the decision, but give that decision to a human so that the strategic implications are presented and you can make that choice well. But the key in all of this to me is how do you make sure it's following those rules? It's very traceable and transparent. You can see it all the way back to the source data. What I'm finding is, these LLMs are, I actually pay for like 3 or 4 LLMs for my personal use because I'm just interested in this. And so I pay for that because I want to see which ones are best for what. And I use them for those capabilities. But you know what I always do is if I'm going to use the AI output for something, I'll go back and look at what was the data source it pulled for that and check to make sure it got it right. And sometimes, like, let's say I want to prepare for something and I'm looking for history and the names and understanding of the history of this concept, right? Like we did in research papers. I will go back and look, and sometimes they have the same name, but it's the wrong person, right? That's possible. You can have the wrong person with the same name as the right person. And so I will go back and just make sure they got it right. And so this is the importance that we need to kind of move forward. If commander's intent has to be built in, it needs to be traceable, it needs to be visible, it needs to be something that you can trust. Because I'll tell you, if the warfighter doesn't trust it, they won't use it. They will not use it in a time of need. And so they need to get used to exercising with it, understanding where it's getting the data, understanding how the trust layer works, and then moving forward. Because when the time is of essence, we need to be able to move. And so you exercise those muscles every day and you start working with these agentic, teammates, and you start to see how you can move really fast.
Thank you. Sir, one more question before we conclude the podcast. As we map through the leads continuum, and today's focus was on the educator mode, as we move from leading by authority to influence and information, what's the ultimate lesson you think the next generation of leaders need to learn about this?
Well, I have the blessing of have had, 32 years of military experience and now going on 5 years of commercial experience. And I will say, I also have a family and I have young men and women that I call my own. And I now have sons-in-law and daughters-in-law that are part of it. And I've got 9 grandkids. And so I will tell them the same thing that I would say right now. And that is, There's no hero leader concept. It doesn't really exist. In the beginning of a kid's life, you are a hero leader. I mean, because everything you say has to be done. But very quickly, you start realizing that your kids grow up, they expect to have a more collaborative relationship. And now I've got adult children. And now it's like, okay, that relationship is different. And if you think of it in a leadership construct, you're dealing with adults in many cases. Most cases, you're dealing with adults. And so they want to be heard and they want to understand the why. And we should be willing to give it to them. And we may not know. And that's the thing, is being vulnerable enough to say, I'm not sure how to go forward, but together, let's figure this out. And I also think there's a data thing in there, right? So if we need to make decisions faster, we've got to practice using the AI tools, the agentic AI, where it makes sense. Let's get into that, because guess what? Our adversaries, competitors in the space are using it every single day. It's not something that they're not using. So I would say we have contested logistics. These are concepts that I literally talk about every day. Contested logistics, hypersonic threats, cyber threats. I mean, we have AI that are finding vulnerabilities and then being able to take advantage of those vulnerabilities in a really negative way. And our decisions can't be slow in that kind of environment. We need to be fast. And so the highest calling of a leader today is not making every decision. I'll highlight another book. It was a guy named Backy, and he wrote the book Joy at Work. But his thing, like if I give the kind of the punchline, is he wanted to make one decision a year, one decision, because he wanted to delegate those decisions down to his team. And it's an amazing book about thinking differently. Like as a private company, you can probably do that. As a publicly traded company, which they transitioned to, it was harder because every time there was a mistake in the company, the board wanted to raise the decision level to the highest level. And we do that in the DOW as well. Like a lot of times they go, well, there was a failure at this unit. That means that it's got to go up 2 levels to be able to make those kinds of decisions again. And guess what? You just slow everything down. That is not the right way. Maybe it's to bring better context. Maybe it's to bring more information. Maybe it's to give them more insight and the right tools so that they can make better decisions. But ultimately, my thinking is the hero leader doesn't really exist, or we shouldn't really promote that. What we should promote is a tuned in leader. Then the legacy they leave behind is a less friction or frictionless system, right? So how do I remove the friction, make processes work better as a leader? And that's my legacy. And, obviously mentoring people, and you try to lead by influence. But if you make every decision at your level, you have not helped your team. If you remove friction from their lives, you have helped your team. And educating them how to do that at their level and the next level and the next level. And the bottom line, I will say this: if you take care of your people, they'll take care of the mission. And it's a service mindset, right?
So let's brainstorm. We got 3 smart guys in the room. When I was at Ford Motor Company, we taught inverting the triangle.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah. So a typical organization, you got the C-suite, and then the vice president, and then the directors and the managers and the supervisors, and then the airmen and the Marines, at the depot.
Yeah.
Okay. And leadership was, this is what you need to do. And it kind of just cascaded down, where Ford Motor Company, which didn't take money from the government. Okay. They said, no, we're stable enough. I was with them for 12 years, 5 years before all that stuff hit the fan, so to speak. And they inverted the triangle so that leadership saw themselves as support to those that added value. So I was thinking, a Venn diagram here in my head. I was leadership, value adders, and AI. Kind of the 3 things working together, where that solution could be right there in the middle. Value adders. Okay, so customers willing to pay for their activities. It changes the form, fit, and function of the process, product, or service, and it's done right the first time. So, what are your thoughts about empowering the workforce with autonomy and respect? And what could that link be that they could leverage AI to make good decisions and good recommendations to the leadership? Thoughts on that?
Yeah. So it goes back to some of the things we talked about. It's like making sure commander's intent and there's a trust layer built in so they can't go off the rails. So like they don't come up with crazy answers, but they are able to get a much broader perspective using AI. I will tell you, I know how much research I did to put together the papers I wrote. I mean, I love to do research. It's a lot of fun. But if you think about the everyday problems, we don't have a month to do that. We have sometimes minutes to do that, or I got to get an answer to the boss. And I want to make sure it's well-rounded and encased in the right kinds of information, we can use the tools that we have today. So I think if I were to look at it, it's like having the same kind of capabilities that the 4-star's looking at, the results of that at the lowest level. It may be they are answering different questions, but it's coming from a source, an integrated source. I call it API-led governance. Like when you connect your phone to a bank, you don't grab all that data from the bank and drag it onto your phone. You just connect to it and get what you need when you need it, and it's real time and it's hopefully right. But if you had APIs to everything, right? If you had APIs to all the data, so go back to that conversation about people, the people impacts, the money impacts, the IT impacts and the stuff impacts. I wanted to know all of that information, but I didn't need to drag it into a new pool or a swamp. I didn't have to have a new thing. I just needed to access it when I needed to have it. There's a mindset there of what do I need and for how long do I need it? And this is where industry gets involved, and it's a challenge, right? So sometimes we don't want to share data, right? If we're industry, that's our gold and we don't want to share our gold. So it's like, how do we do this? Well, we don't own every book in a library, but we can check it out for a period of time, right? That's like the information exchange piece, like an information library. So maybe there's an API to that connection to that information that I need for a period of time. I'll pay for it for that period of time and I'll use it, but then I will stop using it at the end of that period. There's ways that we can do this to make a business case that makes sense. And now the leader, if they need it, they'll have access to that information. The value adder will have access to that information, and they'll both be able to access it with AI to be able to get the right decisions made at the right level. But it's neither one is kind of like if you have 20 inputs of information to the leader because they're so important, and you have 5 inputs to the value added person, they may be getting a different answer and they're not serving their boss well. In the same way, the boss isn't serving their people well by not giving them the information they need. So I think that's the great leveler, is the data we provide, the tools we provide to be able to give them the information they need and the timeliness that they need it to be able to make the decisions that they need.
Wow, that's fantastic. JD, you've been military, government service, private sector. What are your thoughts on all this relationship between AI and the value adders and leadership?
Well, I don't disagree that it is a very efficient way to get to lots of data through lots of data and get an answer very quickly. But the one thing that came to mind when you were talking about the inverted pyramid is, and I agree 100% that leaders should support their frontline employees or frontline service members. But one thing that we didn't talk about, which I thought was very important, is the word trust. When a leader can trust those to make good decisions, they don't have to make everyone. They can allow those in the frontline positions to make those decisions. But the only way you can get trust is consistent behavior over time. And so the leaders have to really commit to developing their subordinates into good leaders by showing them how to make good decisions based on whatever data is available and analytics are available. And so that's the one thing I would add, is just the word trust needs to be built in there somewhere.
I think trust is fundamental. If I don't trust you, like if you do poor work some of the time and you do great work some of the time, I still don't trust that what you're going to give me the next time is right. So that consistency over time has got to be there. But then there is this other piece to that, is we all want the ideal follower, right? The one that's fully engaged, fully active, and fully doing what you want them to do. And sometimes the things you don't want them to do, but they've got the right mindset and they'll challenge your assumptions to make you better as a leader. That's the ideal follower. But we have other kinds of followers. We have yes people, we have sheep, whatever. I'm not really engaged here. You've got people that are kind of always no for whatever reason, they're ticked off at life. You've got these different kinds of followers in your organization. So how do you have trust with all of them? One is to understand why they are where they're at. And so I think some of that building the trust is exercising, giving them more and more authority to do things, to see. And it's like in the Bible, it talks about, if you're trustable with the little things, I'll trust you with more. I think there's something to that in an organizational leadership construct where you trust people with little things, you give them feedback. And this is where you can't be afraid to give honest feedback daily as necessary, and make that a part of your organization. That it shouldn't be like groupthink central where nobody wants to make waves. So they're literally not going to give you the feedback you need to be better. they're going to let you flounder because they don't want to make waves. That's the wrong kind of organizational decision-making construct. To build trust, you have to go through the difficult times together. You got to see how people react under stress, and that's where exercises come in. That's how you give people tough challenges and see them grow through that and mentor them as they go through it at every level. And then you start building trust in the team. You don't build, okay, go back 5 years before NIL. You don't build a winning program in one season. Today you can, you just buy it. But in the
Yeah.
past, there was this thing where you bring people in and you grow them. And then like maybe their third and fourth year, you guys go for the national championship because you've built that trust in the team. You've built that program mindset and that culture of we're going to trust each other. We're going to have each other's backs. Well, today, I don't know if they have that anymore. I mean, Nick Saban's gone. And I mean, there's so many things that have changed because of that, but but you can see there was a program mindset. Like this is how we operate as a team. This is how we trust each other. We go through the tough times and the good times together, and we learn how to serve each other best. And that's when you know your team's firing on all cylinders and you can trust them.
Well, sir, thank you both for spending some time today. This has been episode number 2 of a 5-part series on the leads continuum, moving from autocratic to participative. Last week, we looked at the leader mode, do as I say. This week, we've looked at the educator mode, still do as I say, but here's a reason why. Next week, we're going to look at the administration mode, which root word is minister. How can I help you? And then the delegator mode. And then ultimately, sir, one I think you'll be impressed with is I call it the screener mode. And that's where we apply overwatch security and protection to our teams to remove waste and noise that prevents them from doing their job. So this has been wonderful. I was watching, this will air on LinkedIn last week, but I was watching a clip from Saving Private Ryan, and they were on their mission to get the 4th brother, and they had stumbled upon a machine gun setup that was kind of in the middle of nowhere, and the team was like, yeah, that's a machine gun setup, but we should just move to the left here and kind of, he goes, the Krauts won't even know we're here. And Tom Hanks says to them, is that really what you think? Well, it would distract us from our mission, they said. And he said to them, when in the war is our mission? And he just turned around and started walking towards the machine gun. So that was kind of the leader mode, and this week we've touched a base on the educator mode. So I'm going to give you guys 1 minute each to kind of close it out, and then we'll call this a wrap. JD?
Yeah, first of all, thanks, sir, for coming on and spending some time with us. I learned a lot listening to you. It's interesting, too, as I read through your different positions that we served together at the same time, and I had my similar experience at DLA. Great leadership there because if it moves, you shoot it, you eat it, or you wear it. They bring it to the table. So I really was impressed with the mission and the professionalism of that organization. The second piece about that is, and I know that you've experienced this going through your different promotions and positions, is you have to transition your leadership style to the environment to where it works best. There is an appropriate time for every single one of those items on the continuum, and it's only through years of experience that you know when to transition at the right time. So I know you were able to do that successfully, or you wouldn't have been where you were and today. I look back and while I didn't have the leads continuum to refer to, I can distinctly remember shifting from all these different modes depending upon who it was and what we were trying to accomplish. So this has been a great educational experience for me of retrofitting this continuum on past experiences and seeing how it absolutely does work, and it's absolutely valid that you, as a good leader, you have to be able to make those transitions. So I've enjoyed talking to you. Thank you so much. I appreciate your time and I look forward to more conversations with you.
Hey, and I'll just finish up by saying thank you to you guys. You asked me to be on here. I am proud to do that. I'm really happy to be a part of this. Dr. Fowler, thank you for your time that we served together specifically. But I'm really excited about this podcast and this book that you've written and how it can change organizations. The work you're doing is very helpful to them. I will say, just on the educator mode, it's kind of, to me, it's like a really important mindset. It's a mindset, right? It's like, I'm not the one that has to make all these decisions. In fact, if I am making all the decisions, I'm handicapping the organization. I'm the lid. I mean, some people call that the lid of the organization. And I've always seen that as the place I don't want to be, because what I leave behind needs to be a learning organization, a thinking organization with less friction than what I found it, right? That's what I wanted to produce. My legacy wasn't going to be in, well, General Day said, or whatever, this was a General Dayism. I mean, that's not what I wanted. I wanted to make things that would last, processes and procedures and things that were better for the organization, whether or not I was there or not, right? That was my goal. I don't know if I achieved that. I will say the only reason I got anywhere is because of the people that supported me. And I mean, it's not trite to say, it's really true. We had some really great teams, and I felt privileged to lead them. I also would say my family had a lot to do with it. Lots of moves over 32 years. So it was great that they stuck with me, and we're still an intact family, and we're growing, right? So we're growing from the inside. That's great. And I'm just really excited to be a part of these things, because literally making the next generation more capable is kind of what we're trying to do here, I think. And educating, because what got you here, wherever you are, won't get you there, because the environment that you're leading in changes constantly. So we need to think differently. We need to grow. We need to understand. And reading books like yours and others to bring in this new way of thinking is going to be critical. And I think this podcast can really help grow people's mindset and mind share as they go forward.
Wow, that's great. Thank you, sir. And you guys have a great week. And we'll see you next time on JD and the Brain.
Support the mission. Align your team. Build capability. Leverage Teaming Plus for alliances. Because performance doesn't happen by accident. This has been JD and the Brain.